Hi, everyone. How are you? The Library Love Fest team is back with a very, very, very special guest. New York Times bestselling author and all-around cool person, Laura Lippman. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Virginia. It's great to see you, even if it's through a screen.
I know. Well, Chris Laney and I have been really fortunate to have such really wonderful authors such as yourself avail themselves to talk to librarians, to talk to us about your what's going on in this during this pandemic and talking about books. And so we so appreciate your taking the time. So maybe we could just go around our Brady Bunch foursome right now. I'm Virginia. Chris, who are you? Are you Chris?
I am still Chris. Hi, I'm Chris. I work with Virginia. Laura, thanks for joining us. Really excited to be here. And I have to tell you, Laura, one of the first books I read when I started at HarperCollins was Wild Lake. So you brought me into the HarperCollins family officially, and I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. I feel very honored.
Hi, I'm Lainey, and I love the story collection that we're going to talk about. It's so great, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, yeah.
Well, so the story collection, we can show the jacket, and then we'll get into it, is Laura's new book. It's her first collection of essays. We have the title up, My Life as a Villainess. Can we share the jacket? Laura, love this title, love this cover. It's very arresting, and I love the essay that goes along with this title. It's just so perfect. We'll get into this in a second, but I just have to say that reading this collection of essays is just you're so honest. I mean, you just sort of pull back the layers, and it's so human and so authentic, and so you're making yourself so available here in every way. And I don't know, I just absolutely love this book. I have so many pages are marked galley. Don't worry, librarians, it's a galley. But there are just wonderful lines in here. Your role as a mom, your role as a writer, as a wife, as a friend. You really go there, and the raves have been outstanding. We'll get to them, but I know that you want to read a little bit first, maybe as a setup.
Yeah, I'm going to read a little bit from the lead essay, which is available in full online over at Longreads, and I'll put the link up on my Facebook page and my Twitter later for anyone who wants to check out the whole thing. Really short reading of just 2 sections from the kickoff essay, which is called The Whole 60. The Whole 60. When I was in high school, I would walk to the Walden Books in the mall near my home and read novels while standing up. This was the 1970s, long before bookstores became places that encouraged people to sit, hang, browse. There were no armchairs in that narrow store on the 2nd floor of the mall in Columbia, Howard County, Maryland. Reading while standing up felt like stealing, a pathetic thrill for this straight-A goody-goody. I had money. I babysat. I eventually worked at the Swiss Colony in the same mall. I could buy any volume I truly desired. But my stand-up reads were books too embarrassing to bring home. I remember only 2. One was The Green Gage Summer by Rumer Godden, a British novelist perhaps best known today for inspiring the name of Bruce Willis's and Demi Moore's oldest daughter. It now strikes me as a perfectly respectable book. I could have forked over $1.25 for it. The other one was, I couldn't begin to tell you the title. It was a slick, psycho serial killer tale that began with a young couple parked on Lover's Lane, where they were attacked by a man with, if I recall correctly, a metal hook for one of his hands. He used his hook to slash the roof of the convertible, or maybe it was a knife, and as the metal blade, or the hook, pierced the canvas, the beautiful vain sorority girl, it was implicit that she deserved to die, if only for her smugness, thought, I should have had that slice of cheesecake at dinner. It has taken me more than 40 years, but the singular achievement of my life may be that if I am attacked by a serial killer on a deserted Lover's Lane, I almost certainly will have had dessert. Not cheesecake, because I don't like cheesecake. Possibly some dark chocolate, preferably with nuts or caramel, or a scoop of Tarka ice cream, an outstanding Baltimore brand or one of my own homemade blondies from the Smitten Kitchen recipe. Maybe a shot of tequila, an excellent digestif. Maybe tequila and a blondie, but only if I want those things. Many nights I'm not in the mood for anything sweet after dinner. Every day, one day at a time, one meal at a time, one hunger pang at a time, I ask myself what I really want. I then eat whatever it is. It is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. The next section has some not safe for work language, or just, if you're prissy about language, just know that it's got a bad word in it over and over again. Thanks to our modern world, I can pinpoint almost to the minute when I decided to give up dieting. As a former Weight Watchers customer, of course I am a former Weight Watchers customer, I received an email when the company announced it was rebranding itself as WW, Wellness That Works. Suddenly the whole con was clear to me. On September 24th, 2018 at 11:42 a.m., I DM'd a screenshot of the email to a friend and added, "Fuck it, no more dieting ever." I continued, "I have been worried about my weight for 45 years. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this to my kid. I'm almost 60 years old, and some part of me is still worried that not enough men find me fuckable. People talk about the White House distracting us. Nothing has distracted me as much as this stupid battle with my weight and my looks, both of which are fine. Almost everybody's weight and face is fine, and way too many benefit from getting us to think otherwise. What would happen to the global economy if all the women on the planet suddenly decided, I don't care if you think I'm fuckable?" I don't know how the global economy is doing. I guess we all do, but that's a different story now. But this one consumer is trying hard to keep her dollars, her clicks, and vast swaths of brain real estate from worrying about whether men desire her. I appear on a radio show several times a year, and sometimes I say things that men don't like. For example, I once opined that homophobia isn't the only thing wrong with jokes about men raping other men. They're rape jokes, and rape jokes aren't funny. When I say things like that, there are men who want to set me straight. "You rape my eyes, you rape my ears, you rape food," one wrote beneath a copy of my perfectly lovely author photo. That's the running theme. These men do not want to have sex with me, and I joke about this with the radio show's producer, tell him I have found common ground with my internet trolls. They don't want to have sex with me, and I don't want to have sex with them. But who am I kidding? They totally want to have sex with me. Sorry. So yeah, I wrote that last summer, the whole 60, and it really was. You hate the word journey, but I threw out all the ideas about forbidden food, dieting. I really tried to find the mind-body connection. It's like, what do I want? Chances are what I want is what will be good for me if you're really tuned in. And I'm much happier for it. So there you have it.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny that you read that part, because Lainey and I were both, right, Lainey? We were both talking about that part, how much we love that. I mean, it's just sort of, I don't know. It's that kind of, I don't know, just bearing the soul and going, fuck it, who cares? Like you just owning your body and your mind, as you say.
And it should, your body, and your appearance, it should be for you. It's like, it shouldn't be about for other people. To the extent that people like clothing, like getting dressed up, want to put on makeup, cool. And to the extent they don't want to do that, also cool. It's this idea that any of this is for anyone but you. It's like, no, it's your body, your face, your life, your wardrobe.
Yeah.
And it really has been a very clarifying, I guess it's about 18 months now that I sent that direct message. And I don't think I'll out the friend I sent it to, but it's definitely someone who's sort of, been in the same place and had also wrestled with issues about weight and Weight Watchers and had sort of been caught up in that, and is, also now I think on a really sane path.
Good. That's great. That is just one of the many topics that you cover in the book. I love this quote from Booklist magazine, if I may. She revels in confession and connection, surprise and provocation, and she performs all with panache, wisdom, wit, and courage. Lippman asserts, quote, "I am a tough old bird, and readers will declare and tell of a true tale teller." That is this book. It is a true tale. You're telling true tales. I mean, I wish we could talk about this book from literally from beginning to end, because there are so many great topics that you cover. I don't know. We could sort of pick through any of this right now. And I love when you talk about your relationship with your friends, and you are so you're very, I don't even want to say vulnerable. I just think that you allow yourself to be who you are, and we all fail at times. We all fail at friendships, at family relations, whatever, and Facebook and social media, there's a lot of, look how great my life is. And, and it's not always that way. And I love that you own it and you move on. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I just personally thought that was very brave of you.
I think that I waited a really long time to start writing personal essays. And I don't think I even consciously began writing what I thought of as personal essays. What I started trying to do about 2 years ago was to find a way to expand my own audience. It was like, I felt like, I would have a book come out almost every year. And then it would be, can you write some essays, and can you write for crime fiction blogs? And I started thinking, gosh, if I hadn't reached the people who read crime fiction blogs by now, this is hopeless. But I think there are new audiences. I'm always thinking about, how do you reach the people who think they wouldn't like your books? Sometimes these are people who are just like, well, I don't read crime fiction, or they might not really get the kind of books that I write, the kind of voice that I have. So I began sort of tiptoeing into the personal essay, and it started with some very mainstream pieces that didn't reveal very much about me, other than that I loved Ruth McKinney, who wrote all about Eileen, or that I was so crazy for Southwest Airlines that I literally once flew to Providence, Rhode Island to have lunch with a friend, and flew home the same day so that I would continue my A-list status for the year.
I love that. That's so funny.
It turned out that this wonderful site called Longforms had created a section that was just about aging called Fine Lines. And I was tipsy. I was a couple of wine glasses in, I was alone, and it was very unprofessional of me, but I sent off a direct message to the editor of that section, Sari Botten, and said, I want to write about being the oldest mom. And at that time, and this would have been December of 2018, and she said, sure, just send it to me anytime before, the end of March. I thought my story was unique. I was like, no one else has a life like mine. And so I got very specific about it. And I really dug down for the details of it. And the shock was when it was published right before Mother's Day 2019, is that all of these moms at my school saw themselves in it. And this is, certainly no one's anywhere near as old as I am. I mean, it still makes me laugh. The mother who was like, oh, I'm so excited because I used to be the oldest mom and now I'll never be again. And there was something about that. And it was, the old fashioned in for a penny, in for a pound. And Sari asked me to write more pieces. And I was like, sure. And the next piece I wrote was The Whole 60, which was about, really finding comfort with my body and who I am at an age when the culture is really encouraging you to not feel good about yourself. Mm-hmm. And to sort of, I'm a really good contrarian in my own way. And so it was, the more I began sort of noticing how the culture talks about older women, the more I was like, no, I'm going to do it differently. And then the piece that I was published last August, which turned out to be, I think, the #1 original piece on long forms on their top, last year on the top 10 reading lists for long forms, I had 3 of the top 4 pieces. And the top one was about what a really not great friend I am, and deciding to examine that. And it was bookended by 2 friendships that had ended. One of them, it's a mystery and I'll never know why it ended. The friend just went away and it's over. And I kind of gave up on it. And I'm sad about it, but so it goes. And the other one was the death of my friend Rob Hyacin in the shooting at the Annapolis Capitol in the summer of 2018. And Rob was someone who was really important and precious to me. And yet at the time he died, I don't think we'd spoken for months. And, you know, I was really struck by all the cliches about, you know, finding time for people. And I guess these cliches have been sort of bumped up and are vivid to everyone right now. So, you know, sort of examining what happens to friendship as we get older was, you know, part of the story too. And it was at that point that my longtime editor, Carrie Theron at Morrow, said, "Can you do a whole book like this?" And I mean, I'm happy that I did it. I still laugh when I was sort of like, sure, how hard could that be? Because of the book, I think there are 15 essays, and 7 of them had been previously published. One of the essays, the title essay had never been published. I had written it a long time ago and it was not published. At the time, it was flagged for legal issues, which I have since resolved. And then I had to write 6 or 7 new essays for this book. I think everything in the last section is new. The piece about my life as a reporter in Waco, Texas is new. There's a piece about menopause, which, you know, is still a word people just don't really love hearing about. And so it just felt refreshing just to write about that. Although I think in the end, when I wrote about that, what I was really writing about, again, is this idea that somehow women are just done at a certain age. And I can't accept it. And so that's how the book came together. And it was not easy. I still laugh at myself for thinking it would be easy, but it was really a joy to sort of dig down into some of those topics. You know, one of the essays is about my friendship with Ann Hood. I've known Ann. I think we met officially in 2007, but I feel as if I've known her all my life. I've not, you know, it is just one of those kindred spirit moments, if people remember that phrase from Anne of Green Gables. It was very intense writing about the death of Tony Bourdain, who was my husband's friend and not really my friend, and sort of, you know, a way to think about suicide and again friendship, like, you know, who is whose friend, who gets to mourn whom. I think one thing that comes up again and again in these essays is I'm really not a sentimental person. And, you know, the essay about Bourdain's suicide begins with the game that my friends play with me to find out if I care the least bit that a famous person has died. Because usually I'm like, I don't know them. Why would I care? Like, I mean, it's like, it's great that you care. It's fine. Sit there and listen all day to the music by the person who just died. That's cool. But and I think part of that is also just having been a reporter for a really long time. Dead people were a lot of work. So I'm just like, no, thanks.
But that changed. That changed when Anthony Bourdain, didn't it?
Oh, you know, it changed and yet it didn't, because I mean, as I mentioned in the essay, when someone I know who happens to be well known dies, and I see people who didn't know that person at all sort of trying to see the mantle of mourning, I become furious. I'm still furious about people who pretended to know Jim Crumley when he died. And I don't even pretend that I knew Jim that well, but I knew him a little bit. And I, you know, had talked to him and we, you know, drunk together. I'm trying to, make sure my grammar is correct there. And to just see these people who had never even had a conversation with him sort of cloak themselves in grief, I find that really offensive.
Yeah.
And I find that on the one hand, and one of the things I think the book functions as in several places is a defense of social media. I like social media. And I think at one point, I wonder if social media in some ways, sort of like the novel early in its life, where it's dismissed as this thing that amuses people who aren't very deep or serious. And there's a lot to love about Twitter and Facebook. There's a lot to get upset about too. And the thing that gets me upset is the way people mourn on social media, people that they didn't actually know.
Look at the
Yeah.
movement that social media have started. Like, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's as you say in the book. I mean, people sort of make it their own. It's so much becomes. I think I'm paraphrasing because I can't find it. I don't want to break up the connection with us, but you just talk about the speaker. It becomes about the speaker. At the person who's delivering, a eulogy, or just one of many who get up and say something, and it suddenly becomes about them, and it's like, well, what's happening?
I have seen so many bad eulogies. I cannot, there's one in particular, and I'm going to be really vague about it. No one in the world at large would ever recognize the people, even if I dropped hints. I'll just suffice it to say that it was something very local, something very Maryland, and most people wouldn't know that people were involved. But I went to this funeral for someone who had been very close to my family, had been my father's friend, my mother's friend, someone who had been incredibly helpful to me, one of the best people I'd ever known, and sort of the headline speaker, a person that people were excited to see. It was all about him. And I was just like, I can't stand this. I can't. This is like, and that also, I think I mentioned that in the context of how when we put together a memorial service for my friend Rob Hyacinth, I think I call myself a bossy bitch. I have never been meaner and more unrelenting in my directives on how we were going to handle the tribute to Rob. It was just like, there are going to be 5 people, they're going to read for 5 minutes, and that's it. But you know what? It worked really well. And I have no regret for not making it a big free-for-all.
But that's great. It's great that you had control over that and kept it contained, because that would have taken away from you, and I'm sure others who feel the same way. You know what I mean? It just kind of takes you out of that, what you're really there for, because you're so busy being pissed off that you're not. It's great that what you did. There's one line that well, there are many lines in this book that my highlighter's running out of highlight. But getting back to Anthony Bourdain, if I may, you say, well, you were talking about that when you were when you taught creative writing to college age students, but which is an interesting thing. But the last line you say in reference to this, but sort of the bigger picture, in reference to Anthony Bourdain, is the eternal problem with suicide stories is that the people who have the answers are never here to provide them. I thought that was really powerful. Do you know?
As someone who used to teach at the college level, I was, a very intermittent adjunct teacher of creative writing at Goucher College. But you see a fascination among the young with suicide as being somehow romantic and evidence of, a person who feels too much to live. And maybe it is that. And my thinking on it the pendulum had swung as far to be, it's an incredibly selfish act. Don't romanticize it at all. And in the end, and I think especially with Tony Bourdain's death, I came down on the side of maybe we just don't know. I mean, it was hard for me because he had a young child. And it was like, wow, I think I came down to the idea that maybe you should just say to yourself, I can't imagine how much pain someone must be in to make that decision. And, lately during the pandemic, I find myself trying to be a lot less judgmental. And my daughter at one point said to me, "Don't you think it's weird that some people wear their face mask inside their cars?" And I said, "Yeah, right now, I'm really going with this philosophy of if something makes a person feel better and it's not potentially harmful to anyone,
Mhm.
I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, it's like if someone feels better because they have their face mask on in the car, cool." And I said, "By the way, maybe it's a doctor on her way home from a shift who's so tired she can't even remember to take her face mask off." In general. And that's, it's like, to me, like, there are people I know who joke about the pandemic 15 and they're eating a lot and they're putting on weight. I'm like, don't judge yourself. Just is like, is it helping you get by? Do it. And then I've been sort of a weirdo on the other side, and I decided, well, maybe I could be healthier. And I've been working out more than ever. And I have a joke with my friend about, he said he's going to write the first trend piece on pandemic bod. I talked to my old friend yesterday. My oldest friend, we've known each other since musical theater summer camp as teenagers. And she lives in Indianapolis. And she had asthma as a kid, and she has limited lung capacity. But she was a dancer and she's a yoga instructor. So because she feels that it would be really dangerous for her to catch the virus, she's not leaving the house. She is staying inside her very large and beautiful house in Indianapolis. And she told me she's doing 2 remote yoga classes a day and running 5 miles on her glider. She's like, "I think I'm losing weight." I'm like, "You think?" But I love that. Again, it's like, everybody's got to find their own path through this. I'm really aware that as a stay-at-home writer, I've been much less challenged by the new world order than a lot of people I know. I mean, I worked from home.
Yep.
I'm used to it, and I mean, I would say that, other than having to oversee my daughter's distance learning program, things are kind of normal-ish for me, at least in the day-to-day in the house, because I'm getting up and I'm working on my novel and cooking dinner. And, I guess I'm not going to the gym. I go into a room and, join a Zoom session. But that's, again, I'm really trying to be less judgmental. We'll see how long that.
Well, it is becoming the new norm. Do you miss your trainer? I love this. I love the section in the book about your trainer. You're like your BFF, knows more about you than anybody.
I do 3 sessions a week with Todd through Zoom. And yeah, I adore him. I mean, like, if he were my son, and I think I'm slightly older than his mom, I would be so incredibly proud if he were my son. We actually, he got married on the same day as, many years later. So we share an anniversary, and we know so much about each other. And what was funny is that when he went to Zoom training, he lowered his prices. And so I was like, well, then I'm going to work out 3 times a week with you. So I see Todd every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's great. And
I love that.
Yeah, he really, yeah, I think he really would help me bury a body. He said he would. After you read that piece, he said, "I'm totally helping you bury a body. No worries."
That's great that he said that, because I love that. Like, that's the other thing about this book. It's like, who would help me bury a body? And I bet everybody can name at least one person.
It's funny because this is not a rhetorical question in the book I'm working on. A character finds themselves in great need of assistance and ends up having the most unlikely accessory after the fact. So, kind of like, it's always like, also, it would be awful to get help from someone and then be sort of trapped with that person. That's kind of a little bit like Jim Thompson's The Getaway. My husband and I were just talking about that the other day, which is, everyone knows the film version. One hopes they know the Ally McGraw, Steve McQueen version of The Getaway, which is great and sexy and wonderful. The book is so dark and so nasty And at the end of the book, you basically understand that the two main characters, Doc and Carol, are in kind of a present day hell, because the only thing they know for certain is they can't trust each other, but they can never be free of each other. So they're living in this kind of like weird, sinister Mexican town of well-to-do people where everyone's a little bit criminal and they're stuck with each other as long as they live. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So there's so much to cover. Let's talk fast, well, not fast, but I don't want to miss your fashion, your fashion, what do we want to call it? What is it, your quarantine fashion?
Well, the idea belongs to Rachel Sim of the New Yorker,
Right.
who on March 22nd issued a call for people to go into their closets, put on something fancy, just something that's pretty, and to hashtag it fashion but at a distance. And it's like, well, that sounds like fun. I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? And I think also I was in a very fashion mood because I've been watching these weirdly fashionable film. My daughter loves the movie The Devil Wears Prada. And I then introduced her to a real old favorite of mine called What a Way to Go, which is notable largely because Shirley MacLaine wears something like 60 different Edith Head outfits, each one more insane and glorious than the next. So I think I was sort of in that mindset. And we'd also watched Desperately Seeking Susan around the same time, which is another kind of fashion film. And so I went in and I put on this sparkly jumpsuit that I bought at a sale, and it'd never come out of my closet, and I felt great. And a couple of days later, I found myself getting super dressed up just for like a basic video conference with somebody. And then it really started to snowball. And I was like, what if I do this again? And what if I do this again? And then at some point, I began telling stories inspired by the outfits. And I think that started when I found this, let me do the math, it would have been an 18-year-old Donna Karan dress that I wore to a premiere for The Sopranos at Radio City Music Hall. And I was like, oh, that was a hilarious night. We met Peter Bogdanovich. We sat in front of William Styron, who laughed really hard at a vomit joke, and I started telling the story. And then it became natural to find a story in every dress or every outfit. And then my work started going really well. And writers, as soon as there's any voodoo that makes the book go better, you're like, I'm going to keep doing that. So it's like, I'm not stopping. I've got a book due June 1st. And until June 1st, I'm going to be doing these little creative writing closet prompts every day because
they're fabulous. Chris, can you show a few of these, and then we'll go back to some more about the book. But I just think that these are super fun. And people can find these on your Instagram. I love those boots.
Thank you.
Look at that. Where's the one that you wore to the Oscars? Not was it?
I don't see it yet. This is, yeah, that was like a dress that had never come out of my closet. That's some crazy gorgeous shoes I have.
I love the comments.
So
it's so much fun. And it just, I just, as I said to you before, I love the stories that go along with it, because you just, you get to find out what you did and when you wore it first, when did you wear it better? They're fun. So
yeah, I love seeing that because it reminds me of meeting Ben Dreyer, because he was the one who said I look like Auntie Mame. And
which one?
It's the one where I have like that black frock coat over pants and pink shoes. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben is someone who, again, people are rough on social media, but I have made true friends through social media. And as a matter of fact, like one friend that I made, I kind of stalked her on social media and I made her be my friend, is the New York Times writer, novelist, Taffy Broadesser-Akner. And when I decided to start freelancing, Taffy first, she would sometimes help me craft the pitch. And then if it was a piece that was suitable for an editor at the New York Times, she would often just pitch it for me. And so I think the first piece that I wrote for the Times, which is about Southwest Airlines, she basically pitched it to the person who was then travel editor, Dan Saltzstein. And then she really helped me work on the pitch for a piece that's in the book, which is about my relationship with my double boiler.
Oh, I love that one. And I love the title of that. Wait, what is it?
Revered Wear.
It's great. Revered Wear. Go.
So what happened with that is, you know, the New York Times Magazine has a feature called Letter of Recommendation. And people write about something they love. I mean, Jason Diamond wrote this very wonderful piece about Bialys, for example. And I wanted to write, I really do love my double boiler. I just used it today to make lunch.
Did you?
And I went to Taffy and I wrote her and I said, I want to write about my double boiler. And she said, what do you want to write about your double boiler? I said, I want to write that I really like it. And she said, I don't think you're digging quite deep enough. So we kept going back and forth in this email. And so we finally kind of got to the kind of the crux of the story, which is my father, who died in December of 2014, was a brilliant, wonderful man who had these weird, irrational fears. And he was bizarrely worried about radiation. So we didn't have a microwave once microwaves came along. And as I began telling these stories about my dad and radiation and the extent to which that had affected his personality, Taffy was like, now you found the story. And, you know, again, Taffy is someone I met through the forum of Twitter. And this book is dedicated to a group of women who are on Twitter in a private DM that was organized for women who were trying to freelance, who were trying to freelance basically. And these women are people I check in with almost every day. And sure, sometimes we bounce ideas off of each other. We even had a document that we all, not all of us, but a lot of us committed to this document probably at the end of 2018. It was called Bitches Who Write Pitches. And we each had to like come up with 10 story ideas. And if I go back and look at, Bitches Who Write Pitches, I would say that I've done 7 of the 10 that I thought of at the time, or I've reworked them in ways. Like I really, really wanted to write about Waco, Texas in the 1980s, where I started my newspaper career. And I had one concept for it then, and it changed into this piece called The Waco Kid, which to me is a piece about, well, I would say The Waco Kid is very much a piece about, first of all, confessing something I had never confessed before, which I won't say here because I think one of the things about reading the piece is to find out sort of what was going on with me in my 20s, but also about the idea that these places that you don't want to be, or these jobs you don't want to have, might turn out to be one of the best things that ever happened to you. I mean, I don't think anybody ever walked out of one of the country's top journalism schools saying, oh, wow, I'd really like to go to Waco, Texas. I mean, I didn't. Yeah. And yet I think it was the right place for me. I mean, for one thing, it was in some ways bigger than a lot of newspapers I could have worked at. Mm-hmm. It forced me into a world where everything was unfamiliar, which that's the best thing that can happen to a writer, right? Like if I had managed to get onto the Baltimore Sun right out of college, which is something that almost no one ever manages, right? Except the guy I married, but okay, fine, I think I would never have found my way to being a novelist. I would have been too comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think part of, being a writer is in some level, you have to get uncomfortable with, whether it's what you're writing about or I really think as a writer, you have to be willing to acknowledge what you don't do well and to force yourself to do it. And one of the things I talk about all the time with students is that, I start writing crime fiction. When I started, I knew that plotting was not my strong point. I was like, I can do dialogue. I can do, I'm a decent enough writer, but like, I don't know how to construct a story. I don't understand plot. And I forced myself to work on plotting. I forced myself to learn how to construct these incredibly plot-driven stories, and then taught myself the lesson that the plots are meaningless if they weren't driven by character. And I think, is it 25 years later? Coming up on, I think, 25 years and about 25 books later, I think I got pretty good at plotting because I forced myself to be uncomfortable to do the thing I didn't do well. And I'm always looking for that. And so I think Waco, Texas was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, it's funny because I underlined that Waco was the best thing that ever happened to you. I mean, there's so much in here, and I want to get to some questions. I love the story about your stealing your dad's bar. There's just so much. This is such a beautiful, beautiful book with these wonderful stories and just kind of owning your history and looking back and like I don't know. I just think this is just it's a real deep dive, and it's also, I think it's great for people who really are naturally who are fans of your work, but also who want to just read somebody who is taking stock, looking back, and the checks and the balances, and what went right and what went wrong. I love the bit about Waco and how you got there, and it took forever to get there, and then like the otherism, and just it was really a gift. It's just such a. I'm telling you, people, this is an amazing book. Going on sale in August. We moved the date, right, Chris? Yeah, we did. We moved the date. All right, I should stop because we have questions. Yes, Chris and Lady.
Great.
We'll do that.
Yeah, lots of love, people. A lot of people from Baltimore saying hello. Let's see, Vicky Nesting, our friend, so there's so much that I can relate to in this book. Donna Wilder asked, and you touched on this, but what has isolation taught you about authenticity and self-empowerment?
What has isolation taught me about authenticity and self-empowerment? I'm not sure it's taught me that much about those two things. The thing that I hope that I don't forget when isolation ends, whenever that might be, is what isolation has made me really focus on is like, why was I so busy before? What was all the toing and froing and the sense of hustle and bustle, and I need to get here and I need to get there and I need to be there. And I was like, I don't have time to brush my hair because it's so busy and I have to, part of us being in isolation, there's been this forced efficiency of movement. And one of the things I had to learn how to do was go to the grocery store once a week and have a menu plan and be super efficient. This is like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I go to the grocery store only once a week and there's a menu plan and I don't have to think about it. And like, why was I not doing this all along? Like, what was the rush? And so I think the main thing isolation has taught me is to think about, how do I really value my time? I would have told you before that my time was so precious to me. No one was wasting more of my time than I was. And I'm not talking about even being on social media. I'm just talking about being careless with it, of acting as if I would always have all the time in the world, a kind of selfishness that I think was bred from being autonomous, from being a stay-at-home writer. So yeah, my hope is that you don't want to say, it's not even about stopping and smelling the roses. It's just like, do you need to go there? Do you need to go there? I mean, I kind of never want to get well, I don't even own a car, but I've always hated driving anywhere. And now it's kind of like, do I really need to meet people face to face? Like, I don't even like when I go, I do therapy via video conferencing. And I'm like, do I really have to start driving to the office again one day? Like, it's because that eats up an hour, half hour there, half hour back. I mean, who needs it? So that's what I've learned from isolation.
We have another question from our friend Lillian Dabney. She wants to know what you're reading.
the book, and I was in a reading slump. I don't have a problem saying that. And now I'm super behind because there are books I really want to blurb. My reading life really took a hit. So I had read Weather by Jenny Offal. I've been reading The Glass Hotel. That's on an electronic device. So that's a different kind of reading for me. But the book that really has sort of gotten me back into being my old reading self, as in I can't wait to get into bed tonight with my book and read, is the novel Such a Fun Age, which has been really interesting and fun and unexpected. And I love it because I don't actually know what's going to happen. You know, that's such a, you know, a lot of stuff, it's like really easy for me to see how a novel is going to progress or something, or how a film or a television show. Such a Fun Age is just kind of keeping me off balance in a great way. And I love it because, you know, it's such a perspective of a smart, young African-American woman experiencing these incredibly well-intentioned people, which is one of my favorite things. Is the, you know, it's easy to write about bad people who do bad things. It's like, that's well-intentioned people who are making a total hash out of stuff is one of my favorite subjects. And so I'm really digging it.
That the LA Times piece that you did and we can probably put this up on Facebook, and we will, the link to it. I guess we can. There was so much, there were so many books that you referenced, and so many books that you talked about that are sort of getting you through. And I started clicking, of course, on all of like Valley of the Dolls and then Beanie Malone. And now
Beanie Malone.
Come on. I mean, there's the whole collection of the Beanie Malone stories. I mean, and Betsy Tacy. I mean, you really, they're your comfort. They're your comfort books, aren't they?
My Valium. Yeah. That's what gets me through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we should probably put all of those up there because there are just so many of them. Let's see, what else do we have what do we have up there, Chris? What do we have?
Well, Laura, I'm actually personally a little curious now that you've, talking about discomfort and the world of essays, now that you're back to writing, your next novel, do you feel changed at all? Like, does that discomfort inform your new writing in any way?
I think I'm always changing as a writer, because if you don't allow yourself to change as a writer, I don't think you're taking full advantage of living a life. It's like, I am writing a novel about a deeply unlikable person who happens to be a writer, happens to be a novelist about my age, but in many ways a very different kind of novelist from myself, starting with the fact that it's a man. Excuse me. I've been tending to talk about this book as Misery in a High Rise, because it involves a writer who has had a pretty bad fall down the stairs, is in traction in his bed, requires care. But the nurse who's taking care of him is far from his number one fan. She's kind of the opposite. She claims she doesn't read at all. And she has absolutely no interest or imagination. And she comes in every night and she watches television or knits. And he begins to believe that he is being stalked by a mysterious woman who claims to be a character from his most famous novel. So there's a lot of discomfort there, because for one thing, I have to dare to write about a serious literary writer. I think I can do that. I think I can pull that off. At least I think I can pull off his interior life. And I'm using this opportunity. Anyone who's been reading me for a while knows I'm interested in memory and how it works. And so I'm really interested in sort of creating almost these like kaleidoscopic memories for him, where it's not even always obvious what the trigger is. I mean, I think of memory, sometimes it's almost like a kaleidoscope. You can shake it up, and then this thing pops out, and you're like, where did that come from? Why am I thinking about that? And then it goes away because you shake it again. So yeah, I'm making myself super uncomfortable. And there's sort of, there are moments where the book, I have these moments of staring at the book and thinking, is this so meta it's funny? Or is this so meta, it's not going to land? And I really had that moment literally this morning. And I felt like, well, you should be nervous. You should be taking risk. You should be wondering if you're executing this. And I've been working with the same editor for 25 years. So I have that wonderful sense of trust that between Carrie, who's my editor here in the United States, and Angus, who hasn't been with me as long, but has been my editor in the UK now for about 5 years, longer than that. Between the two of them, I feel really safe to take those risks. And I also have the confidence of, if someone comes back to me and says, this doesn't work, I have the confidence that I'll figure out how to make it work.
And our friend Nora Rawlinson, who's founder of earlyword.com, good friend of the Library Love Fest team, she said, I lived in Baltimore for many years and loved it. What does Baltimore mean to you, and are you hopeful for its future?
Well, Baltimore's home. It's where I grew up. It's where I've, put down my stakes. There are other cities I love. I adore New Orleans. I love New York. But, Baltimore is right for me and my family. So I have to be hopeful for it. That's not always easy. It's a city with a lot of challenges. One of the things that I keep hoping, and now I reveal myself, is maybe I'm unsentimental, but I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna. If there's anything to be gained through going through what the world has been going through, it's to understand that we face a lot of issues that are not that don't respect artificial political boundaries. Viruses, climate change, they don't care. They don't care where the United States ends and Canada begins. And I hope that a critical mass of people finally begins to understand that it's one globe, one world, and we need global solutions. So, I'm hopeful that somehow, in my own state of Maryland, we have a Republican governor who has not always been kind to the city of Baltimore. And that's not where his political bread is buttered. But his response to the virus has been pretty good. And that's a response that's good for all citizens. So again, I'm kind of seeing within my own state what I hope is kind of a global response. You can't look at Maryland and say, oh, it's only the cities. As a matter of fact, these suburban counties next to DC, it's true that the more rural sections aren't very affected right now, but I don't have that sense of you don't have that feeling of that Carroll County is saying, well, or Cecil County isn't saying, well, it's not affecting us here in this county, so we're not going to worry about the next county over. People are beginning to get that, these little lines and squiggles that we draw on maps aren't very meaningful.
That is true. So everyone should put down their Sharpies. Did I say that? Well, we could be here for a real long time, because I would love to just talk to you for forever. I don't know. There's so much to say. I love what you say about menopause. Can I just say this one? Can I just?
Yeah.
So PW says all the things that you're talking about, and you're talking about confronting society's expectations of women. And about menopause, she dryly comments that, quote, it doesn't make women want to die. It makes other people wish we would die or at least disappear. You're very funny. You have a line in the very beginning attributed to Madeline Lippman, who says numerous times, well, she's not shy.
No. I am that odd creature. I'm a writer who's an extrovert. No, I'm an extrovert who sometimes, my energy flags and I need to get away from people. But no, I like people. Today I was supposed to start a book tour, and I was, going to have a lot of fun. But I haven't felt bad for myself for a second. I have felt bad for for debut writers who had works out this spring. My heart broke for them because that is an experience that was taken away from them that can't be replicated really. They'll never get to do that again. And that just sucks. But, you know, for a crusty old broad like me, not getting to spend 2 weeks on the road eating a lot of chicken quesadillas, I'll be fine.
Well, there's one thing that we have in honor of, it's May 5th. So in honor of Cinco de Mayo, which is just for us, it's an excuse to have a cocktail. Here we go. We're all having tequila right now, I believe, aren't we? Lainey, yours is blue.
Mine is fun. It's not a margarita, but it's what I
Okay. Laura, here's
Yes.
here's to you. Here's to the vast library that you have created for reading pleasure for all, and for this, which is such an exciting, wonderful collection of essays, a peek into your life, into your heart. And I encourage everybody to pick this up because it is really just, it's so wonderful and it's so honest, and it's just a lovely book. It really is. Thank you. Well, first let's have a little sippy Sue. There we go. Here to you. Yeah, I'm going to throw the rest of this down the sink when this is over.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, right, sure. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you are, well, we have your last book was Lady in the Lake, which puts you onto the Library Reads Hall of Fame. You are now a Library Reads Hall of Famer. Big fans of that, big fans of that book. We have all the books up there. And Sunburn, and actually the interview that you had come into the office and we sat down and did a Facebook Live interview for Sunburn, which is such a fabulous book. I mean, all your books are so wonderful. They're all up there for you all to click on and check out. But there's Wild Lake. I mean, you know what, Laura, you're amazing. You're a wonderful writer and a wonderful person. You know, you've been with us at Harper for so long, and I just feel like I grew up with you.
Well, I mean, yeah, people profess amazement when they find out that I've been with the same editor for my entire career, and I've only been at 2 companies. I started off at Avon Books, which is part of the Hearst Book Group, and that was acquired by HarperCollins in, I believe, 1999. So I've been in the same place with the same editor and terrific people like you, Virginia, for a very long time. And I know I'm lucky, and I know that's really special, and it does feel like family.
Wow, we feel the same way. So I think it's 3:00. We went a whole hour. I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. The love you'll see later, chat line is there. Just everybody loves you, and so do we. And we will. Oh, did you want to do your Cinco de Mayo?
Yeah. Okay. So really quick, if you're watching this right now, the first person who gets this to my expectations, I will send you a free copy of the book. Cinco de Mayo. What is it? In San Antonio, Texas, where I worked in the 1980s, it was very important that we get this exactly right. So there's a certain answer I'm looking for, and it absolutely must contain the name of a particular city in Mexico to convince me that you actually know what Cinco de Mayo is. Obviously, you're on the honor system. You shouldn't Google, but it doesn't matter because the first person there is going to be the one who gets the book. So thank you very much. And then, happy Tuesday.
And happy Tuesday, right? And don't forget that in addition to My Life as a Villainess going on sale in August, the trade paperback of Lady in the Lake goes on sale at the end of June. So there we are. All of this flag, all of this, so much love. Love this book. And we love you.
Love you all.
Someone just said this interview was what I needed today. So.
Oh.
Well, safe days to you, Laura, and your family, and to everyone who was watching today. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Thursday. I don't even know what we're doing on Thursday.
Love you, Library Love Fest.
Yay! Thanks,
everyone.
Laura. Thanks, everyone. Be well. Take care.
Hit my leave button.